Hello and welcome to the session. In this session, we'll discuss and have a hands-on on web element and how to find web elements using this something called as locators. So earlier we have seen that we have the sample website, and to get the HTML for a particular element, just right click and inspect. And now you see this is the particular HTML for a particular web element. So there are different web elements, text box, buttons, drop down and all. So how to find this web element programmatically using this WebDriver or using Selenium. So, so before that, let us see what is this locator. So locators will help Selenium to find the web element based on the HTML loaded when you load a website. So there are different types of locators. So these are some commonly used locators: ID, name, class name, link text, partial link, link text, tag name. And the two most popular are XPath and CSS. So we will see every locators in detail. But in this session, what specifically we'll be doing is we'll be finding the element, and then once we are good in finding the elements by different type of locators, then we will do certain action on that element. So when say, let's say we find a text box. So after finding a text box, then we will try to type some keys. So we will send keys, or if you find a button, then we will find the button first, and then we will do some operation. Let's say click on that button and so on. So let's do this. So this is a sample website. Again, one sample website. It can be any website online. So I found this easy to understand. So now there are different types of elements. So you can exercise, you practice here. So let's say this checkbox. So I will right click on this and I will inspect the element, right? So if you see, there is a tag name input and attribute ID and bicycle checkbox. So if you see this attribute as ID or attribute as name. So what we can do is we can find the element using ID or name attribute. So that is what is mentioned here. So we can find by ID, name, or if there's a class, if there's a tag, partial link text and link text. So the sample program is like this. So I go to that particular URL using this driver.get, and this is a sample program. So what we need to do, driver.find element. So find element is a method using which we can find particular element. Now we can find the element in multiple way. So we can find the element by ID, name, class name, link text, and so on. So by is an interface, and that is implemented in Chrome packages. So using that method, we can pass on this particular uh, content or the attribute value, and that's how the Selenium finds the element. Okay, so that's how, let's say, Selenium find the elements by partial link text and so on. So we have seen by ID. Now we will see by name. So name, so what is here? Vehicle one. Vehicle one is the name one. So now let us see this one. For example, bike. So in the bike, if you see, this is the HTML, and if you see this vehicle 3, vehicle 2 and vehicle 1. So vehicle 1 is again the same element, that is this bicycle. Okay, vehicle 1. So you can say driver.find element by dot name and value 1. So remember, in this part you have to put the attribute value. Okay, everywhere you have to put the attribute value. Now what about this class name? So there can be an attribute called as class. So let us see this. So if you see this drop down here, so if I inspect, now if you see this, so tag is select, there's a attribute value, attribute value, attribute value. So if you see, class is an attribute and input hyphen x large is the attribute value. So that is how we will find it. So by class name and input hyphen x large. Now if you know any particular element by any particular attribute, you can use whatever you want. But typically, this is the hierarchy which is followed, and which is kind of a standard also, that go for the element which is having this basic attribute, and that's how it will be easy to find. So link text. So if you see this text here, now if you go at the bottom, so now there is this, if you see, it will be highlighted. So it is basically a link. Okay, so if you see this a link, so I will just right click, and if you see here, inspect elements. So now if you see the tag name, attribute value, again attribute value, and this is a visible text or link text. So that is how you can find the element by a particular link text. So sometimes what happens is there are some elements which will be in the HTML which will have only tag, just the tag and the text or link text. So how do you find it? Because there is no attribute and value, so you go by link text here. So by dot link text or by dot partial link text. Now what is partial link text? So obviously if there are multiple links are there on that same particular page, and there are multiple elements are there, so you can do like partial link text. So it will be just matching the partial one. Okay, it can do a partial matching at the end, in the middle, or at the beginning, so anything is fine. Only thing is this text, visible text, should be existing. Okay, now by tag name. So there are hundreds of elements, there are many elements, or at least every element is there with with particular tag name. So with tag name called as div, there will be multiple elements, right? So now let's just run it and see whether the program runs and program does not break. So if the program does not break, that means it has found all the elements. Okay, it will find the element, it will basically quit. So if that is working, then we are able to find the element at least. Remember, it will not do any action here because we are just finding the element for now. Right, so browser is closed and the program will, yeah, program is finished now. So that means there is no error. That means it has found the element. Now, what if there are multiple elements with the same tag name, or with the same link text, or maybe with the same class name, or so same attribute value is used, but there are multiple elements with the same locator. So let us see. So for that we have a method called as find elements. Okay, so earlier if you see, it is just find element. Okay, one element. And if you see here, find elements. So here also input is the same, that I want to find any elements by ID, this one, but find elements. So at the end you will say dot size. So it will give you how many elements are there with that particular locator. Okay, so everything is same, just same website also. Only thing is it will find multiple elements, right? So now what if there is a case that there is a particular element is there. Let's say I will say 1 2 QW123. Now what will happen is it will find all the elements with this particular ID. Obviously in this page there is no, in this website there is no element with this ID, so we will get size as 0. Okay, otherwise for all other elements, if the locator is found, if the element is found with that locator, then it will find the multiple elements and it will give you the size. Okay, so for now I'm just doing undoing here, right? So bicycle checkbox, and that's it. So let us just run it and see how many elements it is found, it is finding. Right, so program is finished now. So let us see, by locator ID it has found only one element, by tag, by locator name also one, class name. So by, with this particular class name, it has found only one element here. By link text one, partial link text one, and tag name. So typically what happens is, if there are multiple elements with the same tag name, so we should typically should avoid any finding the element by tag name, although we have a provision, but that should be avoided. Because if you see by tag name called as div, there are 25 elements, right? So having sorting out multiple elements will be difficult. So typically we need to avoid using tag name. Now how to get the so here you will get the size, right? So how to get the individual element? So let's say uh, again, let's say by tag name, if you find 25 elements, so if you want to get the 0th element or the first element or whatever, now nth element, you say driver dot find elements here, find elements, and dot get 0. So find elements, basically find elements will return you a list of web element. Okay, so if you see the return type here, the return type is a list of web element. Okay, so list means you can get the individual element of the list by dot get method. So this is how you will find only one element. Okay, provided the find element by tag name div or whatever locator. If it returns more than one element, of course, then get zero will work. If there is no element which is found, then get zero will actually throw an exception. Okay, and it will quit. So let's just, yeah, so this is what it is, right? Right. So let us see the other uh, web element the we have seen. So XPath and CSS we will see in the next session.